To become the world third place in the world barista, you could settle at a level someone being a barista making coffee, but you've gone, you know what, mate, I'm not settling for this. I'm going to drive across town, meet another Yoda, and try to be a Jedi in making coffee, and I'll do that on my day off and do that with my spare cash on my way to becoming third place in the world. That's okay. We're getting there.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to throw in a brackets because this all makes sense for someone to build a phenomenal business like you have, except the part, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but it's almost cliche. A perfectionist usually doesn't make a good entrepreneur because they get caught up in the minutiae and they won't move on to the next thing that you need to grow.
Yes. Yeah, that's
the only thing that doesn't make sense to me as I'm writing down.
It's a really, really good question because I've had to change I got good friends who will level with me about being a perfectionist. And that one of my friends said to me, actually, Scott, he said, you actually might be on the spectrum, as Asperger's, because I'm that much of a perfectionist. And he said, look, I'll prove it to you. And he said, I want you to take the scales away. I want you to make a cup of coffee. And halfway through making the cup of coffee, he said, stop. And he weighed my dose of coffee grounds. And then he said, okay, make another one. And he weighed the second dose, and it was spot on, like dose after dose of, when you're dosing the coffee grounds in my hand, but it was spot on to the gram. And so that's how much of a perfectionist I am. So how does that kind of person who's a perfectionist have 160 staff and let go? And trust other people.
This is so good.
So as I said, I ended up in Hong Kong. I was an employee here for 2 years. While I was here for 2 years, I dreamt up started FINEPRINT on Peel Street. When we had one shop, I was that perfectionist. The first shop on Peel Street.
Which one?
I'm the barista. I'm such a perfectionist. For the first 9 months, I was the only person who made every coffee for the first 9 months. I wouldn't let anyone else make coffee. So how do you grow from being that person to 10 shops and having 100 staff who make coffee in all of the shops? So when we opened our second shop, I was still at the time working in both shops and behind the machine. And we opened our second shop. I had employed a guy named Rico to be the manager of the second shop. And I was there for the first 3 or 4 days, and he was getting really frustrated with me. He was getting, because I was there every day, all day, managing and telling people what to do and micromanaging everyone like a perfectionist. And he was getting really angry with me. And he pulled me into the kitchen, and he said, "Boss, can you please leave?" He said, "Can you please trust us? We've got it."
Nice. You pay me to manage, let me manage.
Yeah. And I looked at him and I thought to myself, this is going to be hard. You've got to walk out. And I said, okay.
Hang on, you did walk out of that movement?
I said, okay.
Oh, you walked the block. Looked in. Walked the block.
No, honest. I said, okay. I said, Rico, I'm going to grab my stuff. I'm going to leave. And you won't hear from me for a couple of days. And I did it. I just...
Rico,
and it was...
How'd you go?
Well, as you would expect, him and the team, because what I learned at that time is a very important management lesson is I thought you needed to lead by example by being on the front line. But what I learned through that experience as a business owner is when you entrust other people with something that's your baby and you leave them to do it, they'll step up. And they will do a better job because you've entrusted them with something that's really important to me, and they know that, so they will, and they rose to the challenge, and they did a better job than if I was there. And Rico was the manager there for 2 or 3 years, and so that was the beginning of me learning the difference between being a micromanager and perfectionist, and realizing that I need to stop being a perfectionist and I need to learn what it means to be a leader, and the principles around sort of that particular lesson of, believing in your team, in trusting other people to, and other people can do as good a job as you, if not better job. And so, that was it. So, so to answer your question, I've had to self-evaluate that I am a perfectionist, and I need to let that part of me go. And I made a decision that I'll embrace a new challenge, which is learning how to be a leader and a business and learning business, which I've spent the last 9 years of building this business. That's what I've spent doing. So instead of throwing my perfectionist nature into coffee, I've thrown my perfectionist nature into learning how to be a leader and how to run. What is business? You know, like when we started the business, I didn't even know what a chart of accounts was. I didn't know what accounting was. I started the business, and then 6 months later, I was in meetings with other business owners where they were talking about chart of accounts and accounting and balance sheets, and I had no idea what they were talking about. So I went home and bought an accounting course online and started learning. And so there's a book that's called The E-Myth. I forget the name of the author, but The E-Myth, the crux of the book is what we're talking about, where there's a lot of people around the world who start their own business on the back of being a technician.
Yep.
By being a technician, they could be a physio, they could be one of the best physios in the world, or a baker, or a plumber, or a builder, and they're brilliant. And their friends say, oh, you should start your own business because you're brilliant at this. And they mistakenly take up that advice, start their own business. But what they end up doing is buying themselves a 100-hour-a-week job because they're a perfectionist, not an entrepreneur. And I've had to learn, in order to be an entrepreneur, you need to just let go of being a perfectionist and learn what it means to be a leader and build a business. And so, yeah, that's been, and still to this, it's always going to be challenging because it's in my nature to want to know what's going on with everything.
Well, can associate. It's your baby, huh?
Yes, absolutely. It's my baby. FINEPRINT it's the culmination of my life's work.
And sometimes when you're learning to be a better businessman, I know it's been my experience, I have at times failed my way forward.
Yes.
How's that gone for you?
And
then, mate, just expose yourself. Give us one lesson.
I'm sure something will come to mind as far as failing myself forward. I think I've learned a lot of lessons in relationship through my working with my business partner, James.
Yeah.
So FINEPRINT, in the early days, FINEPRINT was owned 50-50, 50% me, 50% James when we started. And I'm a perfectionist, creative barista. He's in finance, so incredibly intellectual, great with spreadsheets. So you might say he's a CFO and I'm the CEO of FINEPRINT is possibly the best way to explain it. But he's in my relationship is a fascinating relationship because as I said, we're very close friends to this day. But owning a business together, obviously, it hasn't always been easy. So there's, I think there's times where I've been I've allowed my emotions to take over in my relationship with him, whereby I've said things I shouldn't have, got inappropriately angry about something he did or wanted to do. And when I think we've all been there, done that, where we do that, and then half an hour later we just deeply regret it. Regret what we said, regret what we did, and but despite that, we've both learnt and grown together, and moved on and moved through it, and I think it's made us closer for it. And learnt from each other. I've learned. He says he's learned a lot from me. And I've learned an insurmountable amount from him. I think he's learned from me, strangely enough, about like leadership and emotional intelligence and about our business model and specifics there. I've learned a great deal from him just about communication. That things that what he's really, really taught me is never ever say anything or write anything or send a message that's emotional. Just always make it, practical and sort of reasonable. He's brilliant at that.
That's a lesson for every entrepreneur. I know when to say I had my own business and then merged with Colin, joined Dynamics, and then Dave and Charlene, the four of us. And sometimes you write those emails and when you make them emotive, instead of 2 paragraphs, end up being like 8.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, huh?
That's a lot,
It's a lot of work, so fueled. You link it, well, this is how I provide for my family, and there's all this backstory you're bringing into the,
Yeah.
and then along the way, you learn to be better at direct
Sometimes these
communication.
emails and messages you type are just, it's a good way. Just don't send it. Just use it for self-counseling.
Catharsis.
Yeah. Because you write that email, don't send it, and then the following day read it, and then you might never end up sending it, but at least you've been able to self-vent, I guess, or sort of vent to yourself for.
And also have a big boxing bag hanging behind you. Just